What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today, as I'm sure you've probably seen all over the place, we got 3 new announcements for Star Wars games from EA, and we're going to be going through all of that news today, breaking down everything that we know so far, as well as just a little bit of speculation on top of that. Before we get into it, if you guys are new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. I'm going to be covering all Star Wars games right here on the channel, but with that being said, let's get stuck right into the news. So I woke up this morning to a bit of an announcement from Lucasfilm Games on Twitter, where they officially announced 3 new Star Wars games coming to the Star Wars franchise, all made by EA and more specifically all made by Respawn Entertainment. Now, initially I think a lot of people are going to be annoyed at the fact that these are obviously EA games. EA does have a bit of a rough reputation at the moment, especially when it comes to the Star Wars games, because we all, we're all still frustrated about Battlefront 2, and I think a lot of people are just frustrated with EA when it comes to Star Wars. But like I said, these games are going to be made by Respawn, who are the dev team behind Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Now, speaking of Fallen Order, they did announce that one of these 3 games is going to be the next game in the Star Wars Jedi franchise. There's also going to be a new Star Wars FPS, and then also a strategy game on top of that. So there's a little bit of everything in there. There's a single player sort of third-person action adventure type of game. There's a first-person shooter and a strategy game. So they're kind of covering all bases there, and it does seem like there's going to be something for everyone. Now, for me personally, I am absolutely the most interested in the first-person shooter game. I am a huge fan of Fallen Order. That's honestly one of my favorite Star Wars games ever made, so I'm very keen for that. But for me, I'm a shooter guy. I like multiplayer games more than anything, so the fact that we are getting a new Star Wars FPS is absolutely mental to me, and I've got a lot of speculation on what that could be, so stay around to the end of the video. I'll kind of save the FPS news for the end of the video because there's more to talk about there, but there is a little bit of extra stuff to go through with the other 2 games. Now, we all knew that there was going to be a Fallen Order 2. They've kind of mentioned in the past that they were going to be, continuing the Star Wars Jedi franchise. That's what they're calling it. They had already been hiring for people to work on that franchise, so we kind of already knew, but this is actually the first official announcement of the game. Technically, before this, we didn't have any official word that the game would be launching, and so the fact that we do now have official word of the game, even though we already knew that it was coming, it is definitely very exciting. Now, Stig Asmussen, who is the game director on the first game, obviously being Fallen Order, he is back at the helm for the next game in the franchise, which is obviously very exciting to see, because that game, I think most people would agree, that game is definitely a very, very solid game, and the fact that the same team and the same director and everything are going to be working on the next game, that is definitely very exciting to see. And as for when that could launch, there have been a lot of rumors that actually could be coming out this year. Now, I'm not 100% sold on that, because the first game, I think they said it took like maybe 5 or so years to make. And so with Fallen Order coming out in 2019, if it comes out in 2022, that's only a 3-year cycle. So I'm not 100% sold on that, the rumors around it coming out this year, but a lot of rumors are pointing towards that, and a lot of rumors are actually pointing towards the reveal for the game being in May, either on May 4th, or Star Wars Celebration is actually, I think, May 26th or something like that. So we're not too far away from finding out. Obviously, if it does get announced in May, then obviously it'll be coming out this year, but I think if we don't hear anything about it in May, then you can pretty much write it off coming this year. So we will probably know about the actual launch date for the game in, the next 3 to 4 months from now. Now, moving on to the strategy game, this one's going to be developed by a new studio called Bit Reactor, who is helmed by game industry veteran Greg Fersch, and I hope I've pronounced that correctly. It's the weirdest spelt name that I've ever seen, but that will be developed by Bit Reactor, as well as Respawn will sort of be there alongside them helping produce that game. Now, Greg Fersch, he actually worked on the XCOM games as well as Sid Meier's Civilization, and those are obviously some very, very popular strategy games. I did play a few of the XCOM games back in the day, and obviously Sid Meier's Civilization, that is like one of the all-time great strategy type games. So the fact that he worked on those games is obviously very exciting, and I think when it comes to a strategy game, they're a lot harder to sort of mess up than a lot of other type of games out there, so I'm really excited for that game. I am a big fan of strategy games. They're not something that I play all that often, but games like Age of Empires, for example, they were like some of my favorite games growing up, so I'm definitely very excited for that as well. And as goes for all of the games in this sort of announcement here, I will be sort of updating that as we go. If we get any news, you can hear about that on the channel, so be sure to keep your eyes peeled over the next couple of months. Now, last but definitely not least, we have the first-person shooter, like I mentioned, and this game is actually going to be helmed by Peter Hirschman. Now, for those of you who don't know Peter Hirschman, he actually worked on the original Battlefront games and not 2015 and 2017. I'm talking the early original Battlefront games in 2004 and 2005, as well as working on a few of the Medal of Honor games. He actually also worked on Star Wars Empire at War, weirdly enough, speaking of strategy games. And he was essentially involved with Lucasfilm around the time of, the Force Unleashed games and all of that kind of like golden era of Star Wars. He was actually working at Lucasfilm during that time, or LucasArts, I should say. So yeah, he has been on board on some of the, the most popular games in the Star Wars franchise, as well as some other really good games like Medal of Honor, for example. Like I said, for me, this is easily the most, important news out of all three. Obviously, this channel was built on Battlefront. I don't think this game is going to be Battlefront 3. Personally, I don't see anyone making Battlefront 3 except for DICE, and I think with the state of Battlefield 2042 at the moment, I don't think they can take anyone away from working on that game, and I also think their reputation isn't quite good enough at the moment to actually be working on Battlefront 3. So I don't think this is going to be Battlefront 3. I think this will probably be a bit of a smaller scale shooter, maybe like a 6v6 type of shooter or something like that. I don't think it's going to be a big, large scale shooter, but I could be wrong. We have no idea at the moment. This is just all a guess. But either way, the fact that we are getting a new shooter in the Star Wars franchise, that is super exciting for me, and hopefully it does end up being multiplayer. They haven't actually confirmed that here, so it technically could be a first person shooter similar to like the Republic Commando games, where it's actually just a single player like story. I definitely don't think that it will be. I don't think many people make single player FPS games anymore. Like, that's a pretty rare sort of genre to be making. So I'm like 99% sure this is going to be multiplayer, but they didn't actually confirm that in here. So we are just going to have to wait and see. Now, there were actually some rumors about this time last year, actually, that there was going to be a new Star Wars game made by EA, and it was going to be sort of like a tactical shooter. And that kind of just never came to fruition. We didn't hear anything about that in 2021. And I think a lot of us were actually expecting to, because that was like so heavily rumored that it seemed like it was going to be real. And then obviously nothing came of it, but that could actually have ended up being this. And so if that is the case, that is actually pretty exciting, because if it's been in development, or even they started working on it back January or Feb of last year when that was sort of initially rumored, then that means the game could actually have been in development for a year now. And if that's the case, there's every chance that it could actually come out late next year or something. I'm expecting most of these games that they're talking about, other than maybe Fallen Order, I'm expecting them to still be years away. It seems like, at least for right now, there's not really any Star Wars games on the horizon other than obviously Star Wars Hunters and Lego Star Wars. But like I said, if those rumors were true and this is that like tactical shooter that was rumored, then yeah, there is every chance this game has actually already been in development for a year now. So once again, we're going to have to wait and see. We have really no information. They obviously announced these games and they said sort of who was working on them and stuff like that, but there's no hints at actual release dates or anything like that. They haven't said how far into development that they are. They did mention at the end of the blog post that work has already begun on all three of these projects, and Respawn is looking for talent to join the teams. So they have confirmed that work has already begun. Now, that could also just be, the initial planning stage. Usually the very early stages of game development are not actually developing the game, but sort of working on the story and conceptualizing the game in general. So it could only be up to that stage. I think when it comes to Fallen Order 2 or whatever that's going to be called, that has obviously been worked on essentially since Fallen Order 1 launched. So that one's definitely going to be deep into development at this point, especially if the rumors are true that it's going to be launching later this year. But yeah, as for the other two, we have no idea how far into development they are. Hopefully they're very far into development. I would love to get a new, I'd love to get the shooter this year. Obviously that's not going to happen, but I would love to have an actual shooter again within the Star Wars franchise. That's just something that I want so badly after the the loss of Battlefront 2. So hopefully they're deep into development, but like I said, we're gonna have to wait and see, and you guys can be sure to find any news about any of these games right here on the channel. That is going to do it for this one though, guys. Obviously there is a lot to unpack there, but at the same time there's really not that much detail to go through. So everything I've said in this video is essentially everything that we know at the moment. I am going to be making a follow-up video to this one in a few days, sort of talking about the shooter and just like what that could be, when it could be launching, and just sort of speculating on that game a little bit. So if you guys are interested in seeing that and you're not subscribed to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any upcoming Star Wars gaming content. If you guys want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then do consider supporting the channel over on Patreon. The links to that are down in the description. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.